years later, everything turned around for me. Now I was popular again. People were coming back to my concerts. In 1791, I wrote an opera called The Magic Flute. It's the story of a queen whose daughter is taken away from her by an evil magician. She finds a young prince who's going to rescue her daughter for her. And she gives the young prince a magic flute as his weapon. But it turns out that the evil magician isn't evil. He's a good, wise man who has taken the young woman away to save her from her mother, the evil queen. I was getting job offers now from all over Europe, from places that I had never been to. I was getting letters from people telling me, Mozart, write me a string quartet, write me a symphony, write me music for the winds, we'll pay you anything you want. So now I was busy. I had all this music that I had to write. I was getting out of debt, paying my bills back. I was excited. I worked hard. I worked all day. Sometimes I worked all night to write that music. Maybe I worked too hard. I made myself sick. I came down with rheumatic fever. It almost killed me when I was a child. I had a high fever. I was weak. I was dizzy. I couldn't even stand up for a while. I had to lie down. For 3 weeks, I was in bed. My arms and my legs were all swollen. Constanza called the doctors, but there wasn't much that they could do. And then 3 weeks later, on December 5th, 1791, not at the age of 85 or 65 or even 45, but at the horribly young age of only 35, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart died before he could even finish this, the last piece of music that he was writing, his Requiem, his Mass for the Dead. Now, I'm sure you figured out by now that I'm not really Mozart. That's just a wig, and this is just a costume. My name is Dennis Kobray. I'm a musician and an actor. I'm dressed up as Mozart to give you an idea. What would it be like if this great genius, Mozart, stepped out of the pages of the history books and came here today to tell you his story? So I'm not Mozart, but everything I told you about Mozart is true, including this. When Mozart died on December 5th, 1791, there was a law that had been passed in Vienna a few weeks before that said that whenever someone died, they had to be buried within 48 hours to prevent disease from spreading. So when Mozart died, his body was taken to the cemetery. They dug a deep grave. They buried 20 or 30 dead bodies in the same grave with Mozart, and then they covered it up. No tombstone, no grave marking, nothing. And for the 200 years, people all over the world have wanted to visit Mozart's grave, and they can't. We'll never be able to do that. We'll never know where Mozart was buried. I believe that in a way we can say that Mozart is still alive. I know the history books say he died 1791, but I don't believe that. When someone sits down and writes music, they do a lot more than grab a piece of paper and a pen and write nice notes. They put their heart and their soul, their spirit, their story, whatever you want to call it, into the music. And if that music is so good that 200 years later, people all over the world in different countries speaking different languages still pay money to go to concert halls to hear it, to buy recordings, to play it at home. If we do that, then the music is still alive. And that means Mozart is still alive too. This is the last part of Mozart's last and greatest symphony, his number 41, the Jupiter Symphony. That's not just an orchestra playing notes that Mozart wrote a long time ago. That's Mozart speaking to us. He's telling us his story, his pain, his disappointments, and his happiness through the language of music. And all we have to do to keep him alive is use one finger. Take one finger, press the button on a tape player, put on a radio, a CD, go to a concert and listen. Learn how to play his music on an instrument, read a book about him. And if we do that, then Mozart can't die. We won't let him. We'll keep him alive forever.